is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. NASCAR, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your host, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Florida. We're looking live. Well, Matt and I are looking live at Florida as we broadcast on location, preparing to take in as much of this weekend's Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona as we possibly can. My money's on Matt taking in more than I can. Let's face it, I'm old. Either way, we got a show for you, too, including the rest of the race slate for this weekend, as there appears to be plenty going on. There's also a rift that's growing between the president of the FIA and Liberty Media. Alfa Romeo Sauber got themselves a new team principal, sort of. Yeah. A new generation of Formula E. Not that big of a hit with one driver. Got a lot of sponsorship news from NASCAR and a contract extension from the Cup Series as well. So all that and more coming up on this weekend's edition of CRN, which we'll get rolling right after this.
Stay right here for more. tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in as we get this show underway. We got some pretty good racing going on this weekend. In fact, actually began yesterday. Race number 2 of the Formula E season got things running. They were running over in Diriyah, Saudi Arabia, the Diriyah E-Prix, in the Arabian city of that same name, obviously. First of 2 races this weekend going to be aired on the CBS Sports Network live yesterday. Kind of like in the first race in Mexico City a couple of weeks ago. You were talking about these drivers that are trying to get themselves familiar with these new cars. Mexico City E-Prix was won in dominating fashion. In this case, if it hadn't been for the driver that won in Mexico City, Tag Heuer Porsche's Pascal Wehrlein could have just stomped the field. He qualified 9th, knifed his way through the field, claimed the lead by lap number 30. Mexico City E-Prix winner Jake Dennis was hot on his rear wing, but could not quite make the pass for the win. So with the win, Wehrlein, former Formula One driver, now has 2 wins in this series in his career. Dennis was only a half second back. Then you got Sam Bird and Jaguar third, trailed by Sebastian Buemi, Rene Rast, Nick Cassidy, Jean-Eric Verne, Jake Hughes, Andre Lauderer, Mitch Evans making up the top 10. The second race of the weekend for Formula E in Diriyah will actually run later today. But here in the United States, you're not going to be able to watch it live. CBS Sports Network is going to put it on a delayed basis tomorrow, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Sorry, if you wanted to watch it live, you can't, or you're going to have to find some other way to do it from overseas. Just to kind of give you an idea, it is a city street course like pretty much all Formula E courses are, at least modified, maybe a combination city and partially road course like it was in Mexico City. But in this case, it's pure street course, 21 turns, 1.55 miles. Locally in Saudi Arabia, it'll be a night race, so it makes things a little bit more interesting. We'll run down all those results. We'll give you the updated points for the drivers and the teams as well on next weekend's show. We're not going to worry about that now. Of course, where we are, or about an hour from where we are technically, because we haven't made it to the track just yet, we'll start to trek our way over to Daytona International Speedway. Once we're done with the show, it's going to be in daylight and nighttime and back into day. The Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, this is kind of a long, convoluted schedule, so bear with us as we kind of give you an idea. Now, if you have the Peacock streaming service, you can watch the entire race, all 24 hours of it right there. But if you don't have the Peacock streaming service, I don't. You can check. You do?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brag about it, why don't you? NBC starts with the coverage 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time. That's only going to last an hour. USA picks everything up from 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Central Time to 8 o'clock Eastern tonight, or 7 Central. It'll pick back up on USA, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central for 2 hours. Then it's only on Peacock until USA begins again, 6 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Central Time. NBC will pick it up for the final 2 hours, noon Eastern, 11 Central Time. That'll be the end of the race and the post-race celebration. So there you go, USA or NBC, unless we are talking overnight, and then it's only on Peacock. So there you go. Now you are as filled in as we can possibly get you.
Yep. Get your scorecards out, boys and girls. It's going to take one to watch this race.
No doubt about it. Hey, number one, want to say a big thank you to John Myers. He's worked diligently to try and get everything going from down here. We had a plan that might have worked if we had had the proper equipment, but unfortunately we're still in our budding stages here. As John says, it all fell apart. Yeah, I understand. If we had the proper equipment, which we're working as we are growing here at CRN, it might have come across just a little bit better, but hey, we're on the air, and that's the important part, and we appreciate all of John's work. Let's go ahead and get started on the news here, because this really is kind of turning into a soap opera, Matt. We start in Formula One, and I say the soap opera because you've got the commercial rights holders of Formula One. That's Liberty Media. We've talked about them now for going on 5 seasons now.
Right.
Turns out they're not too happy with the FIA, which is Formula One's governing body. Specifically, they're not all that happy with FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who has been in that seat for what, a little over a year now?
right at it. I think maybe a year and a half at best.
Not much, let's put it that way. But he's already making enemies. The commercial rights holders of the series, Liberty Media, publicly accused Sulayem of interfering, their word, not ours, with their arena after he commented on a report on the value of the series. Bloomberg Media recently posted a story about a Saudi Arabian group. They're known as the Public Investment Fund. In other words, they've got government backing, which had been mulling over a bid to buy the commercial rights from Liberty Media. And the amount placed on that was $20 billion, with a B, billion dollars, U.S. And Sulayem posted on social media right after that, quote, as the custodians of motorsport, the FIA, as a nonprofit organization, is cautious about the alleged inflated price tags of $20 billion being put on Formula One. Well, that kind of rubbed the officials at Liberty Media and their lawyers wrong. They responded to those comments by sending a letter to the FIA. You remember those, when you had to put a stamp on it and officially put it in the mail? Yeah, I don't use that much anymore. Anyway, European news agency Sky News published excerpts of that letter, said that Ben Sulayem, according to Liberty Media's officials and their lawyers, had, quote, overstepped the bounds of the FIA, unquote. Another portion of the letter added, quote, commenting on the value of a listed entity, especially claiming or implying possession of inside knowledge while doing so, risks causing substantial damage to the shareholders and investors of that entity, not to mention the potential exposure to serious regulatory consequences. I know there's a lot of legal talk in here. You can tell the lawyers wrote it. It continued, quote, to the degree that the comments damage the value of Liberty Media Corporation, the FIA may be liable as a result. Well, here's the thing. Liberty Media knows what they have. And this is not like when you go onto Facebook Marketplace and somebody's throwing out a 1977 Camaro that has effectively rusted quarter panels and big holes right up under the seats, and they're asking $7,500 and go, I know what I've got. No, you really don't. In this case, Liberty Media actually does. The offer that was just potentially posted by the Saudi group, again, $20 billion. Yeah, what Liberty Media bought it for back in 2017, less than a quarter of that. They bought it in 2017 for $4.4 billion U.S. That's a nice little profit if you can make it, right?
Yeah, and the Saudis would have made an even bigger profit if they had sold it.
You know it. The commercial rights are separated. This is kind of an interesting thing from the regulatory side of the sport. That's kind of covered by the FIA, and under those terms, on a, get this, 100-year lease, Liberty Media claims that it, quote, has the exclusive right to exploit the commercial rights in the FIA Formula One World Championship over the FIA, and therefore they shouldn't have any interference about it. The letter continued, quote, further, the FIA has given unequivocal undertakings that will not do anything to prejudice the ownership, management, and or exploitation of those rights. We consider that those comments made from the FIA president to interfere with those rights in an unacceptable manner. And the letter continues to go on by adding that if they do decide to sell the commercial rights, the FIA really doesn't have any say in it. Quote, the circumstances in which the FIA would have any role in a change of control of the F1 group, very limited. Any suggestion or implication to the contrary, or that the potential purchaser of the F1 business is required to consult with the FIA, is wrong. Since portions of the letter were published, neither the FIA nor anyone from either Formula One or Liberty Media has actually come out and commented. But the thing about this is Ben Sulayem has been very much unlike our previous president of the FIA. We really didn't hear much from him unless there was something out there that he felt needed to be said.
Right, and I even think that it's very good that this president is being so outspoken, because these league presidents, whether it be NFL, MLB, NBA, NASCAR, whatnot, they definitely need to be more outspoken. So I think this is good for F1 that he's doing what he's doing.
But it is creating strife, so they're going to have to figure out how to get over those hurdles and figure out exactly what's going to be in the best interest of the FIA and Formula One both, because it really kind of seems like they're working almost at butting heads instead of trying to figure out the best way to work together to get and make sure that this continues to be a popular and growing in popularity here in the United States, especially because they're in a very fragile area right now. You look at what they've done ever since the Formula One Drive to Survive, and I know we've kind of buried that into the ground, but let's face it, that's what really kind of helped break Formula One in the United States is that Netflix series. It allowed a lot more people to get a look at Formula One that really they'd never had the opportunity to get before. And now all of a sudden we've got these two sides that instead of trying to build upon that, they seem to be more than willing to fight with each other over it.
Yeah, and if they don't get their stuff squared away, it's only going to damage F1 that much more.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to work together for the common good of F1 so that it will keep escalating and escalating and escalating at the level it has been, especially here stateside.
Yeah. And for that, and this is talking to both Liberty Media and to Ben Sulayem, the FIA, remember the old little fable about the goose that laid the golden egg. We'll just leave it at that. We're coming up on a break here, John, so we're going to go ahead and get prepared for that. But it has been a couple of weeks since the FIA asked for those expressions of interest. Andretti Cadillac we know of. What about other teams? So we'll talk about that. McLaren thinks that they can make a pretty big jump coming up here pretty soon. Haas F1 has made a couple of moves here. We'll talk about that, including the fact that they know what date they're going to be able to let us look at what the new livery or paint scheme for 2023 is going to look like. So we'll tell you all that and more as we continue on. You're listening to Live from Florida, Matt and Steve on the Championship Racing Network. We'll be right back.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, thank you very much for checking us out here this morning and understanding that we're dealing with some limitations here. We've got some equipment that we are realizing that we're going to have to get sooner rather than later.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're working on it. But, we're technically not in Daytona, just to let you know. We are staying in a hotel in Kissimmee, I guess it's not technically St. Cloud. I guess it's just Kissimmee.
Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Lake Buena Vista, what are you going to call it? The Orlando Metro.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah.
So we're about an hour away from Daytona, which as soon as we're done here, we're going to pack everything up and we're going to be sporting our CRN gear and we're going to be heading to Daytona, grabbing our credentials and everything, and we'll be checking out as much of the race as we possibly can until I fall over, because I'm old and can't stay up for 24 hours, much less the amount of time that it would take considering what time I got up this morning to make it all the way around to the end of the race. What he does, I'll let him deal with it.
And if everyone only knew how much sleep I lost just to do this show.
Oh,
It's a good thing you're not trying to do a whole 24-hour run and watch the entire race, huh, John?
Yeah, I'd make it probably 5 minutes, and then, it'd be snooze fest for me.
I'm thinking probably about 3 o'clock this afternoon. I'll be in a chair, probably slumped over with my chin on my chest, but that's another story entirely. Let's get back into the show here, and we're talking Formula One, and it's been a couple of weeks since the FIA has asked for what they called expressions of interest. In other words, teams that want to get a franchise, if you will. They want to get their own team and participate in Formula One. According to the FIA, one team has responded, Andretti Cadillac, which we knew that was going to happen. That happened probably within 5 minutes after the expression of interest officially opened their window.
Or be shocked.
F1 has issued a statement acknowledging that interest, but added that there were other parties that they had talked to that expressed interest to them. Here's the thing. The window's not closed yet, but so far they haven't filed that expression of interest with the FIA. Oops. Ben Sulayem talked to motorsport.com, said, quote, to us directly, meaning the FIA, he said it's Andretti, adding that to this point, they are the only officially interested party. All teams would like to become champions as well. Andretti, I'm sure, would, but growing pains. Here's the truth. Formula One has been dominated in its current generation. I'm talking about the V6 generation by really two teams, Mercedes, Red Bull. Ferrari has shown signs of life, of being a legitimate title contender as well. They can win multiple races on a year, but they just haven't been able to finish it off. It's been Red Bull the last 2 years. It's been Mercedes all the way back to the beginning of the V6 era. One of those other teams, though, feels they can make it now a Big Four by 2025, and that is McLaren. Probably not really all that surprised. Thing is, they're in a much better position now than they were years ago. Zach Brown noted that as well, said that he has been investing in their operations, and the team has just been funneling money back into it and getting the team in better shape. Later this year, they state that they've got their in-house wind tunnel set to come online in their new headquarters, should be open up and fully operating. Brown feels now that they're 2, maybe 3 years away from challenging for something that they haven't seen since back in 2008. You know, back when this young kid by the name of Lewis Hamilton was driving for him. Remember that?
I've never heard of him.
Brown was interviewed recently and said, quote, I'd love this year to look like 2021, mixing it up with the top three, but we just don't have all of our technology infrastructure in place yet. By 2024, we will have had it in place, but not for the entire development of the 2024 car. So 2024, I'd like to think will be a good step forward where I think we could be mixing it up on a more regular basis, and then summed it up by adding, quote, then in 2025, we'll have everything we need. We'll have the drivers, assuming you can keep those two, the people, the resources, the wind tunnel, and the simulator. There's no reason why we shouldn't be in a position to be challenging on a regular basis by 2025. That's our ambition, and it would be something of a rebound from a kind of a down year last year. They were fourth in 2021. That was what he was talking about, being able to mix it up with the top three. But last year they dropped to fifth behind Alpine in the final Constructor Cup standings. And here's the thing. It's been a pretty nice run because that actually marks the worst finish in the standings, fifth, since 2018.
It's nothing to complain about. But I do agree, and I do get Zach Brown's point. You want to get more.
Sure.
You've got that ability, and you can, I think, can't believe I'm actually saying this, you can dethrone Ferrari.
Okay.
You got a little bit to go. You got a little bit to go to catch Mercedes and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Especially Red Bull.
I mean, claiming a win here or there, that's one thing. Being able to do it on the regular basis that you're watching Mercedes and Red Bull having done it over the past few years, last year notwithstanding when it comes to Mercedes. But you've been able to watch these guys claim wins on a regular basis at Red Bull and Mercedes time and time again, really since, 2014. Ferrari, again, they've had their ups and downs, but pretty much they've been in that top three the whole time. Again, we're talking top three, top four, really top five, the upper half of the Formula One echelon since 2018 for McLaren. And every once in a while, they get a podium, they get a rare win here or there from time to time, like they did last year. But they just haven't been as consistent as the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. Heck, they haven't even been as consistent as Ferrari has, and that is what they got to work on. And I think that's what Zach Brown is really looking at and going, that's what we need to get, is we need to get that consistency, and that's where I think he's talking 2024 is probably going to be that year where they're going to start seeking that consistency by using all of the tools that we just talked about there. And then in 2025, launch from there.
Yeah, personally, if it's me, I think he needs to get it going this year instead of 2024, looking at 2025. Find whatever you can, work on it, get it going, and put it in, implement it this year.
Yeah, it would be nice. But, I get where he's coming from. He's looking at the long term of it, and he wants this to be a long-term sustainability issue. Keep in mind, they moved on from their Formula One veteran driver, Daniel Ricciardo. They've replaced him with a rookie. So that's another situation. Oscar Piastri, and I don't care how talented you are, you're still a rookie. You're still a learning curve here. I don't care how good you were in Formula 2, Formula 3, or whatever other series you came from. There's still a learning curve when you step into the top level of any particular series. We'll get back to this a little bit later, but we look at Stewart-Haas Racing for an example. In NASCAR, they brought in Cole Custer, who, got a win within the first half of the season after being brought up, but after that, nothing. There's the learning curve that Cole Custer didn't seem to quite get fully. Oscar Piastri is going to have to deal with that this year.
Oh, that and then some.
Then there's, of course, their returning driver, Lando Norris. Norris has been solid. He's been consistent. He can claim top 10s and top 5s pretty much all year. Occasionally, he'll get a podium or top 3 finish, but right now, I just haven't really thought of him as a threat to be a consistent winner.
I agree with you on that part. But with Lando, he is too, what I like to use the term, he's too streaky.
Okay.
He has good streaks, and he has bad streaks.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have a little bit of the good one, then he'll fall off the radar, and he's back on the radar a little bit, and he gets back to the middle. He's way too streaky, in my opinion.
I gotcha. Well, Norris is the veteran on the team. He's been there for 3 or 4 seasons. Brown himself was hired back in 2016, and when Zach Brown was hired to take on the CEO role, that was when McLaren was really at its rock bottom. They were really at the worst position that they had been since 2008. They'd finished 9th in the final standings the year before. They were hemorrhaging sponsorship. They were all walking out the door on him. And Brown notes, really all of that's changed. Quote, 5 years later, we've won a race, almost won another. Again, you've only won one. You've had a claim at another potentially, and you've had a pole position with 9 podiums. All of that in that time. That's what we're talking about. You are able to get up there, top 10, some top 5s. You got to be more consistent than 9 podium finishes and 1 pole. You're claiming 3rd, 4th, 5th. You're mixing it up with the people at the front, but you got to be able to finish it off. But he did say now that the sponsorship has come back. Well-known companies have come on board with him. Google, Coca-Cola, Dell, Cisco, Goldman Sachs, and others. Added that when he was hired, the team was losing, get this, $100 million every year. And now the operation is profitable. They've been able to expand out into other series. In addition to Formula One, they've got their teams in Indycar, Formula E, Extreme E, and he's hinting at potentially more in the near future. I'm looking squarely at NASCAR, truth be told, because you're in the other big series. How much else is there?
Well, about the only thing you have left is NASCAR, IMSA.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. I would probably lose my mind if you saw a McLaren Papaya Orange top fuel car.
Of all the series that I could potentially think of, that might be the last one I would picture McLaren in. But you know what? Who knows what's in the mind of Zach Brown?
There's no telling. No telling.
We'll find out. Alfa Romeo Sauber is something that's about to be in real state of flux over here. Now, we've talked about this. They lost, for example, their team principal and their former CEO, Fred Vasseur, when he left to take the same position over at Ferrari. And Fred Vasseur has been with Alfa Romeo Sauber, for several years before he decided to take on the role at Ferrari. We noted on the show in previous weeks that Sauber had named a new CEO. They poached Andreas Seidel from McLaren to take that position. But for team principal, technically that spot's not going to be filled. They did name one of their current employees to the role of team representative, which makes him effectively the team principal, because here's the thing. Seidel is going to remain, for the most part, he'll occasionally show up at races, but for the most part, Seidel's going to be in the headquarters back in Switzerland. That means that the former managing director, now team representative, Alessandro Aluni Bravi, is going to be the guy that's on site, reporting directly to Seidel in this new management ladder, but with no team principal and being the guy that's on site, effectively that makes him the team principal.
Ladies and gentlemen, your new Exhibit A for a dart without feathers.
Pretty much. Robbie's been with Sauber since 2017, came in at a board level, proved himself over the years to be named the managing director last March. Seidel and Bravi going to oversee this team in their final year with Alfa Romeo as a title sponsor. Obviously, they're preparing for Audi to come on board as a full partner, including Audi building their power plants come 2026. The thing about that was announced mid of the week. Yesterday, the team announced they've signed a new title sponsor. Stake. Stake is a company, S-T-A-K-E, not the kind that you would go out and eat, is describing itself as one of the world's leading entertainment and lifestyle brands, whatever that means. They specialize in crypto, casino, and sport betting platforms, in places where that's legal, like not in our home state of Alabama. Anyway, Stake signs on as a multi-year title sponsor, so it now officially makes, get this word, soup, the 2023 name is officially Alfa Romeo F1 Team Stake.
Say that 5 times fast.
I don't want to.
I don't either.
That's going to change after the 2023 season as well, because as we just noted, Alfa Romeo is in their final year as the title sponsor of the Sauber team. So next year, I guess it'll be Sauber F1 Team Stake until we get to Audi's term.
I would say so, yeah.
I guess we'll find out next year. We got a new calendar leader in the clubhouse for the first to reveal their 2023 look. It's not going to be a full reveal. Let's keep that in mind. This is going to be a paint scheme or livery, as Formula One likes to call it, showing up on an older car. Final day of this month, as a matter of fact. It's going to be this coming Tuesday, the earliest of all the other reveal dates, and it's Haas F1. Haas F1's got themselves a new title sponsor. We talked about that here on the show a few weeks ago. MoneyGram, a U.S.-based company, so they've got themselves a U.S.-based sponsor for the U.S.-based team.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The team says that their internally coded VF23 car has undergone the FIA's testing. The chassis and the nose have passed The car is approved to race, or homologated, as they say in race terms. The car itself, though, probably not going to be shown to the public until preseason testing gets underway. But again, we're going to get a look coming up very soon at how the car will look paint scheme-wise Tuesday. I doubt it's going to change a whole lot, truth be told. We're just going to find a place to put the MoneyGram sponsorship, but we'll try and detail it as best we can come next week. And for those of you that are watching on our YouTube feed, CRN Live, I hope we'll have pictures.
I hope that they change it all the way up.
Yeah?
Go to a dark scheme, like black or gray or something. Get away from that white. Go dark.
We'll see. I mean, they did it with Rich Energy, but we know about that sponsorship and its problems. MoneyGram's color scheme, I don't know. I don't know whether MoneyGram's color scheme as a company is going to work for that or not, but we'll see. Of course, we also know Haas F1 going to go into the 2023 season with one new primary driver, Nico Hülkenberg, coming in, taking over for Mick Schumacher. Hülkenberg, an F1 veteran, joins the other F1 veteran in Kevin Magnussen. And that continuity continues in the reserve driver role because for a fifth straight season, Pietro Fittipaldi comes back. You kind of wonder, at some point in time, I kind of wonder here, what's next for Pietro? 5 years as a reserve driver? I mean, how much more?
Well, it's like we've always said, F1 is so top-heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically have to be kicked out of a ride to make a spot because everybody seems to want to run until they're 50. Something like that. I don't know.
Sure.
But F1 is like Toyota and NASCAR. Top heavy, loaded, nowhere to go.
That's true. So Fittipaldi seems to be happy in the reserve role. We'll see how long he's happy in that role.
I mean, he's running today, tonight, tomorrow, for the next 24 hours here in, I think it's GT3, GT2, GT3.
It's one of those two.
One of them. One of the prototype divisions, let's just say that. Between that and maybe Indycar or something, staying in the reserve role, I mean, who knows?
At least he's got a regular role. Despite the changeover from Schumacher to Hülkenberg, team boss for Haas F1, Gunther Steiner, never at a loss for words, believes the team now has a solid base. Quote, I've said before, the continuity and consistency is a key in Formula One. Pietro remaining with the team for 2023 makes me believe that we have strong foundations, and I tend to believe that they do. My question is this. Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen, both, I'll give them both credit. They are used to finishing top 10 in their time, not only with Haas F1, but before. Mm-hmm. My question for this is right now, what's the car? Because that's the key. I mean, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you have a junk car, you're not going to be able to do anything with it.
That is extremely true because the car will tell you how good the driver is or how bad the driver is.
All right. Well, we'll find out. And Haas F1 trying to build upon their finishing 8th in the Constructors' Cup standings last year. They did get their first pole with Kevin Magnussen. Mick Schumacher, very inconsistent, couple of really bad, very expensive wrecks, but seemed to show some promise later on in the year, but it just wasn't enough. So now we've changed over to a more veteran driver. We'll see if that is something that actually works, like it did the first time around when they paired Kevin Magnussen with Romain Grosjean, who's now an IndyCar driver. We'll see if that magic can work again. Well, Andretti and Cadillac has General Motors there. We talked a few weeks ago about another American-made car company that is talking about getting into Formula One. We have an update.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson in Florida. John Myers back at the home offices in Alabama. We thank you for checking us out here, and we appreciate everyone who has been listening on the FM and on the FM app, and, of course, checking us out live on YouTube. And all you got to do is go on to YouTube and look up CRN Live. And, hey, subscribe to it. It's free if you haven't already. And for those of you that have, tell your friends. Have them subscribe too. We appreciate it.
Do it.
So you said that a little birdie has told you that Haas F1 team principal Gunther Steiner's on the grounds at Daytona this weekend?
Yeah, the little birdie being Instagram, social media, saw it through the Haas F1 page. Gunther is on the grounds. We'll find him.
Yeah, we're going to see if we can't track him down. Again, the man is certainly no stranger to a camera and a microphone.
Correct.
So, yeah, we're thinking possibilities here on CRN. Just saying. Okay. Andretti and Cadillac, or General Motors, obviously combining forces to get into that potential Formula One entry. We've been talking about that over the past few weeks. It appears that Ford's eyes are wide open. We've talked about this in recent weeks as well. Reports now, and again, this is nothing that we're getting from Ford or, spoiler alert, Red Bull, but there are people that are talking. So take it with a grain of salt, and that grain of salt can be as big as you want it to. But reports have Ford officials deep in talks with Red Bull, and what it would do is it would be a deal where you would find the blue oval icon on the Red Bull power units. Little ironic, considering that's technically a Honda design. Not sure what the fine folks over in Japan think about that, but anyway, if that were to come together, that would begin with the new generation of those power units coming in 2026. Well, Mark Rushbrook, who's the head of Ford Performance, recently talked to Ford Motorsport, or Motorsport.com, I should say, and said this, quote, Formula One is certainly strong and growing both in the United States and globally. What they've done as well is create great racing and great competition. It's still the pinnacle, but they've been able to reach new audiences with things like Netflix's F1 Drive to Survive. As a company, we go racing for innovation, tech transfer, learning opportunities, but also for marketing reasons as well. It's shifted for sure, and it definitely requires consideration. Now, Ford's been involved in Formula One before. The most recent one was back from 2000 to 2004, where they took other people's engines, in this case Cosworth, and rebranded them as Fords for the Jaguar team, not Jaguar the car, just to let you know. Since then, they withdrew, started to concentrate on NASCAR, and then re-expanded out into things like sports car racing, World Championship, World Rally Championship, things like that. So Rushbrook was asked about the status of getting back into Formula One. He cryptically said this, quote, we don't comment on speculation, but it's the same with all these series that are out there. It's our responsibility to study them and understand them and then make decisions on whether it makes sense or doesn't make sense. You and I have talked about this. Ford's line of the EcoBoost engines, which are 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder, and even some, but not really as well known for 8 cylinders, but the 4 cylinders and the 6 cylinders that Ford is doing with turbocharging seem to be an obvious platform, truth be told, not only for Formula One, but for Indycar as well.
What that guy said, right there.
I mean, we're talking twin-turbo V6s.
It's a perfect storm. F1, IndyCar. I mean, let's even throw out IMSA.
Sure. Yeah, that could make that work.
I mean, it makes too much sense. But what does this world have the least of nowadays? Common sense.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you are correct. So we'll find out whether or not there's any, if there's any substantiality to this rumor that Ford and Red Bull are deep in talks. We'll find that out. All right, let's go to those quiet guys over there at Formula E, the second stop on the Formula E calendar this weekend. We talked about it, but I want to do a quick review because in the first race of the third generation of Formula E cars, if you were just watching it on the surface, the cars seemed to perform well. It does seem, however, that according to at least one driver, Jean-Eric Vergne, there was a problem with the new tires. You got to remember that they are provided by the new to Formula E company this year, Hankook. That's right. Last year it was Michelin, but their contract ended and Hankook has taken it over. This is their first year doing it. And according to Jean-Eric Verne, Hankook's tires that they provided for the Mexico City E-Prix were hard. To quote him, like concrete. That's not good. I'll let him debate that for a little bit, and let's get the rest of the story in. This is not all over for Hankook, but Verne, who's going to make his 100th series start this weekend, says he'd like to see a switch. Now, in case you hadn't noticed, all Formula E races are run on tires that have tread, and what that does is that allows the series to use the tires in wet or dry conditions. Verne, however, would like to see Formula E allow an option for racing slicks unless there happens to be rain in the forecast, and then you would have the option of going to treaded tires. What are the chances he sees that this season? Slim and none. And I believe that Jean-Eric Verne believes Slim left just before the season started. Said, quote, I mean, it's the car we have, it's the tires we have. We know it's not going to change in the season, so we have to deal with that. But I think it's going to be tricky races for sure. I would want slick tires with a 70% increase in grip. These are hard, like concrete, so slippery, and it's even more in the race because when you follow, you lose the downforce. Well, I'm sorry, didn't we just talk about a driver who blasted his way from starting ninth all the way to the front of the field to claim the win yesterday in race number 1 in Saudi Arabia?
I don't think it's a tire issue, Jean-Eric. I think it's a car issue, or maybe the person holding the steering wheel.
He has changed over to a new team, and they're going through some growing pains over there.
Survey says.
Now, I'll play devil's advocate for just a moment, because here's the thing. We see, well, I mean, NASCAR's even started to do it with some tracks, mostly the road courses. But he mentioned Formula One, even the Indycar. They have the ability to go back and forth between slicks of hard, medium, or soft compound and intermediate wets and full hard rain wet tires.
Sure.
Why hasn't Formula E decided to go with that? I mean, I understand that they're trying to keep costs down, but how hard could that be for Hankook to provide a slick
Not hard.
and a wet?
Not hard at all. Not hard at all. If Pirelli can do it, Goodyear can do it.
Firestone.
Firestone can do it.
Let's see, IMSA runs on what, Continentals?
I think so.
And of course, they got the Michelin Sport Challenge, so that's probably going to be on Michelin tires. So yeah, pretty much every other major car or tire company that does any kind of racing seems to be able to do it.
If they can, so can you. Just do it.
Just throwing it out there, Hankook. Again, hire us as advisors. We're here. We've got the ideas.
All right. Before this IndyCar starts, right? Yeah.
Okay.
My question on this one here: what in the central Alabama is HMD Motorsports about to do? Just listen.
Yeah. HMD Motorsports, not a name that most fans are familiar with unless you happen to follow Indy NXT, which is the main feeder series for IndyCar. We used to call it Indy Lights, but it's changed its name. You might want to get to know these guys because right now they're a multi-car operation based in the Indianapolis suburb of Brownsburg, but they're sitting in a pretty cramped area. 6,500 square foot facility, 9 entries this coming season. That's got to be tight.
That's extremely tight.
But they're expanding as we speak. Henry Malukas, and if that name sounds familiar, it should, because he's the father of IndyCar driver David Malukas. You might remember Dale Coyne Racing with HMD Motorsports. That's the combined effort to put David Malukas in that Indy car. Well, Henry is the founder and boss of HMD Motorsports, said that they are now converting an old grocery store location in Brownsburg, Indiana. They say it should be ready before the end of the year. It'll create now a 65,000 square foot facility. 6,500 feet, 65,000 square feet.
Do the math, boys and girls. That's 10 times larger.
For 9 teams?
Yeah, it's going to be close.
But wait, there's more. That's right. Not only will it give it plenty of room, it'll give them a chance to expand from their current 35 people to prepare them for the future, which might include joining Indycar as maybe their own team instead of just partnering with Dale Coyne.
The sad part about this, I am pretty sure I passed this grocery store location last September when I went to Indiana.
I believe you probably could have. And here's the thing. A couple of years ago when I went up there for the double on that Saturday, we went over to Brownsburg. There's a pretty decent chance, without me knowing it at the time, I did too.
I see it now. Let's take the Piggly Wiggly signs down. Put the HMD Motorsports signs on the marquee.
Sure, why not?
Make sure you put your carts in the right location, kids.
I agree. So, yeah, we'll have to see what comes of this. It's not going to be an immediate thing, obviously, but the facility should be done later on this year. Says the facility is going to be a one-stop shop for the team, going to have 8 to 10 truck bays, spots for motorhomes, going to be offices, boardrooms, a 3,000 square foot gym is going to be in there, and he's going to have more. And that also includes the ability to bring the wrapping and decaling of their own cars in-house instead of farming it out. The general manager of HMD Motorsports said, quote, "It's going to be a full race shop. The goal is to do at least 8 cars in Indy NXT in 2024, and we'll see from there. Aspirations to be involved in the IndyCar program on a more full-time basis. A standalone program has not been ruled out by any means. There's always the passion for that, but obviously the dollars and cents have to make sense for that to move forward." He added that the building is being renovated at Henry Malukas' personal expense, and they know that at this time they are a pass-through operation. In other words, their drivers aspire to go to them, learn, and then move on, be it to IndyCar, to IMSA, or to some other top series of racing. The company says that, hey, we've already seen quick growth. They began with only 2 cars in 2019. They're now up to those 8, sometimes 9 entries this coming season, all while pairing with Dale Coyne Racing for David's ride in IndyCar last year and this. So how soon might we hear? Morini said, quote, "As much as I would like to go race IndyCar this year as a standalone program, probably not the right time. Is 2024 the right time? Maybe. Is 2025 the right time? Yeah, maybe. It all depends on the drivers that we have and the economy. It's definitely a plan for the future and a goal. The way that the shop is being built and structured, it's very much to suit those needs." So in other words, this is a team that is planning on doing, shall we call it Matt Cowling? I mean, he started small, worked his way up.
Yeah.
GMS Racing started kind of small, worked your way up through the ranks. It's not really Trackhouse. Trackhouse came in and kind of started at the top.
Yeah, that's how Justin Marks rolls. I could see that.
I like where they're going. I mean, they built themselves a really good base. I mean, you start with 2 cars within the last 5 years. I mean, he just said it, 2 cars in 2019, and now you're up to 8 full-time, maybe 9 full-time cars this year. That's a heck of an expansion, and that shows your ability to be able to do really good things with what you got.
True. Very true. So
I wouldn't count it out.
All right, so we got one team will be on aisles 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. We're going to put the engine department over in the produce section. Let's put the wraps and car design area in the meat case.
I would switch that.
Yeah, let's swap that one.
That seafood section? Or deli?
Let's put the suspension area and stuff over where the deli bakery is. You know.
It would be fun, actually. I got to admit, it would be fun to have seen the layout of this when it was a supermarket before, and exactly where everything is under the new setup when he finally got it finished. It would be fun. I don't know if we'll ever have the opportunity to see that, though. This has been a story that we have followed as much as we possibly could ever since the tragedy, really, that befell him at Pocono. And we're talking, of course, about Robert Wickens. If you've forgotten the story, basically, he got himself into a wreck, a serious wreck, a wreck that, going through the tunnel turn in Pocono, punted Robert Wickens' car up into the fence. And as the car is supposed to do, it started shedding parts as soon as it hit the catch fence, because that's supposed to do what? It's supposed to absorb energy and try and take away some of that impact from the driver. But the problem is it shed so many parts that effectively all that was left was Robert Wickens sitting in the tub. There was no suspension. There was really nothing. And when that tub came to rest, it landed proper side up. Thankfully, it didn't put Robert Wickens on his head. But the problem is it landed square, flat, back on the racetrack, flush track, with nothing there to suspend or ease that landing. And unfortunately, Robert Wickens was, for all intents and purposes, paralyzed. As we go to break here and we wrap up hour number 1, Robert Wickens has been racing with a specially modified steering wheel in IMSA competition, for all intents and purposes. What are the chances of him getting back into Indycar? There was a time last year when Robert Wickens himself felt like it really wasn't a possibility. Somebody else thinks that it might now actually be so. What does IndyCar think about it? We'll tell you about that when we come back. Hour 1's in the books. Hour 2 coming up with talk about Robert Wickens back in IndyCar right here on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450 AM
and W230.
On the Championship Racing Network.
Well, hour one in the book successfully. We appreciate you joining us here in hour number two. If you just joined us, hey, we've already been on for an hour. Make sure next week you join us earlier. 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time is when we're on the air, and we appreciate you checking us out for any part of the show. We got to teasing the fact that Robert Wickens might be able to be coming back to IndyCar. Brian Herta would like that. He is currently the team owner for Wickens in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Sport Challenge, where they are fielding Hyundai TCRs. But because of injuries that he sustained that we talked about on the wreck at Pocono a few years ago, Wickens is really using all hand controls. He can control the gas, the brakes, the transmission, all on the steering wheel, so he can do it with his hands. Now, for IndyCar, that poses some hurdles to overcome because right now there's all kinds of stuff that's on the steering wheel that doesn't include that. So they'd have to figure out how to make that work. But Herta would like to get Wickens, if they can, and if the right adjustments could be made, maybe into the 2024 Indy 500, should they approve that from the fine folks up at the top levels of IndyCar. Well, IndyCar President Jay Fry recently talked to Racer.com and said they're open to that idea. Quote, "We are certainly open to Robert, or that could be any qualified driver, racing with hand controls. It's a technology that we haven't used previously in IndyCar, but we are open to it. There's a lot of work to be done before it would have our approval, and there's also the safety side of figuring all those parts out, but I would never bet against Robert and his determination to make that happen." I mean, this is a guy who really in the weeks and months following that crash and losing the vast majority of the usage of his legs really from the waist down, we saw him start to take walks with help. And we've seen him, as we just talked about, getting back into racing in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Sport Challenge. I'm not betting against Robert Wickens. If IndyCar can find some way to approve these hand controls, number one, I'd be thrilled for Robert. I think it'd be fantastic for him. It'd be a great story.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. But you get some hand controls in the car, Sam Schmidt, come on down.
Yeah, that's true too, because he'd probably like to get a chance of doing that as well. It's going to be interesting to watch the progress of the technology in this and see how much IndyCar is willing to let go, because here's the thing about technology like this. Race teams, engineers, they love to figure out ways of, what's the best word? I'm not going to say necessarily cheat, but, well, for lack of a better term, cheat. You're putting in a brand new technology here, and are you going to try and hide something? And that's something that IndyCar has to be very aware of as well.
Yeah. Like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. Because they're going to come up with something.
Sure.
And then if they test him at Indianapolis or test him, Homestead, Texas.
I think you'd want to test not only at an Indy or any of those aforementioned tracks, but you'd want to test on a road course as well.
Oh, sure. Barber.
Sure.
It seems like all the preseason testing comes down to Barber.
That's true. All right. We'll keep an eye on it and let you know. Oh, this story came out yesterday. Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
I hate
while
getting into the
we
story.
were in the airport.
Last week we noted AJ Foyt Racing has announced the color scheme and the number for rookie Benjamin Peterson. Under the old classic red that Foyt drove to his last two Indy 500 wins, they put the number 88 on there as well. And so that number 88 for Benjamin Peterson would team with Foyt's regular number, the number he drove all of his career, the number 14, which will be driven this coming year by Santino Ferrucci. I'll be honest with you, I didn't get it. I never made this connection, and why anyone's making this connection, I haven't got the slightest clue, but because we are the United States, or really now the divided states of the offended, somebody came up with this. Some uptight airheads got upset because they paired 14 and 88 on the same team. Again, I never thought about this, but apparently, and I did some research on it, there's a negative ideological connotation when those two numbers are used in that order. The two numbers used together go back to Nazism. You heard me right, Nazism. Still dealing with those particular numbers being used by neo-Nazi and white power groups. How? Without going into too much detail, the 14 is a 14-word statement, apparently, by former leader of the movement, David Lane, and I'm not quoting that statement because it's just not worth it. As for 88, 8 refers to the 8th letter of the alphabet. The 8th letter of the alphabet is H. You double that, 88, HH, and if you know anything about World War II history, we know about that. I'll just leave it there. So Foyt Racing has changed Peterson's number. Instead of 88, they're going to go with the number 55. Minor soapbox here, folks. I know, John. You probably have a couple of words you'd like to say as well, and feel free.
I'm biting my tongue. Thank you very much.
I'd love to, but I can't.
Why wasn't anybody appalled or offended when Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon took their laps side by side at Indianapolis for the final time in 2016, I think it was?
That was 14 and 24.
Wrong. 14 and 88.
Oh, that's right, too. He was driving Dale's number, wasn't he? I forgot about that.
He drove the 88 car.
Yeah. But, you know, the 14 and the 88 in NASCAR aren't under the same banner.
True.
Two different teams.
They were under Chevrolet at the time. That was the only tie that they had.
For anybody who knows literally anything about AJ or Larry Foyt, team owner and day-to-day runner of Foyt Racing.
True.
For anybody, for that matter, who knows anything about Santino Ferrucci and Benjamin Peterson.
True.
If you honestly believe that there was an intent to put those two numbers together because of that ideological connotation, you're off your flippin' rocker.
I'm just going to throw this out there. It brings me to music. I believe it's the Eagles or Don Henley, a song called Get Over It.
Yes, that would be the Eagles. You are correct. And it would be a very appropriate song to play here, no doubt. Again, you're pulling, what was the term in the movie JFK as I edit it? You're pulling Nat stuff out of Pepper. You're finding something that isn't there. Stop it. There was no intent. There was no malicious intent. It was a happenstance. But the change is done, so there we go. Yeesh. On to better stuff. We've noted the 2023 IndyCar schedule is made up of 17 races. Now, by now, obviously, you likely know NBC Sports has the sole broadcasting rights for the series on their family of networks. Well, first, let's give you the good news. 13 of those 17 races are going to be on the main network, NBC.
Yep.
Somewhat less good news. 3 of those other 4 races are going to be on the USA Network. Now, here's the good news within that slightly less good news. The USA Network is either at or very near the top of all cable and satellite channels in total household reach. So if you're an IndyCar fan, you really shouldn't have any problems whatsoever in getting that. Here's the bad news. Kind of like what we talked about at the top of the show when we talked about the schedule for the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. There's that one race that if you don't have the Peacock streaming service, you're either going to have to get one, borrow a login, or hope that some sports bar is going to show it to you, because the July 16th race on the streets of Toronto, viewable on the Peacock streaming service, and it alone. No USA, no NBC. First 7 races of the 2023 season, all going to be on NBC. That'll take you through Detroit and the new downtown street course for the Streets of Detroit race. Then you've got Road America and Mid-Ohio. Those 2 races are going to be on USA. Toronto on Peacock. Then you go back to NBC, which includes the Iowa doubleheader and the Streets of Nashville, or the Music City Grand Prix. Then we go back to USA. That's going to be the race that's going to be on the Indy Road Course. That's also going to be the doubleheader day between Indycar and the NASCAR Xfinity Series on the road course, which would tell me probably that we are going to go from the IndyCar race on the Indy Road Course on USA to the Xfinity Series race on the Indy Road Course on USA.
Right, yeah.
Then your final 3 races, Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway, Portland, and WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, all going to be on NBC. As we just noted, NASCAR is going to be on NBC by then as well, so that means that those races will probably likely end up on USA. We haven't gotten the full rundown of NBC's plans just yet on what they're going to do when it comes to NASCAR. We'll figure that out when it comes. Let's turn our attention to NASCAR and the Cup Series, and we note that as of last week, we knew a lot about the part-time Legacy Motor Club entry for 7-time Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson. We talked about the number. It's going to be 84. Flip the number 48, you get 84. One of his major sponsors is going to be the company that's been his sponsor the last couple of years when I'll loosely use the term drove in IndyCar, and that's Carvana. His crew chief was going to be who? Well, we had to wait until this week to get that information, and we got it. Veteran crew chief Todd Horton comes on board for Jimmy Johnson. Like Jimmy Johnson, Gordon's a title winner in his own right. He led Joey Logano to his first title in the Cup Series back in 2018. Here's the thing. He decided to step away from everything after the 2021 season, said he'd been kind of burned out, wanted to spend more time with his family. Apparently the opportunity to work with Jimmy Johnson was just too much to pass up. Said, quote, "In my conversations with Jimmy, I found we both missed the competition, but don't want the grind of a full-time schedule. So this is a great opportunity for us still to race and to help the Legacy Motor Club build on the success that they saw in 2022. In addition to his 2018 Cup title with Logano, Gordon's got 25 Cup Series wins to his credit when he called the shots for both Logano and for Ryan Blaney over at Team Penske. Again, I got to admit, he's kind of right. I mean, you want to talk about the softest landing you can get. If you're missing competition, you can get back in part-time at a team that seems to be starting to figure it out. Petty Motorsports, we've talked about them. They had been in a drought for the longest time. Last year, Petty GMS Racing, they get a win. And I'm not talking about a rain-shortened win. I mean, they got a quote-unquote legitimate win, if that's where you want to go with that,
Right.
with Eric Jones putting the number 43 back in victory lane. Out of all places, Darlington. Real popular win. This is a team that seems to have found the corner that they needed to turn. They've got Eric Jones. They're building on him. They ditched Ty Dillon, which probably was the right move because, no disrespect to Ty, but Ty didn't really have the equipment when he was running the number 13 Geico car. I mean, I'm sorry. I know that they were getting their equipment from Richard Childress Racing, but they just never seemed to be able to put it together.
Yeah.
And then last year, he was given effectively the same equipment that Eric Jones was being given, and we didn't really see the performance there. So they wasted no time. They made the switch. They've got a go-getter in Noah Gragson in that car coming this year.
Yeah, they do. I'm still questioning this move from Ty to Spire.
We'll get back to that. With Jimmy Johnson, okay, let's start here.
Yeah.
What does Jimmy Johnson bring to the Legacy Motor Club that they didn't have before? Other than the fact, obviously, that he knows how to win titles.
veteran voice.
Okay.
Todd Gordon brings that added veteran voice. Dave Owens has got the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Luke Lambert coming in, that experience is there.
So the crew chiefs are the right mixture, you think?
I think it's the right mixture, yeah. That's that veteran voice combined with they're not exactly green. They're just getting out of that green stage, if you see what I'm saying.
I do.
So, I think the combination with Johnson and Gordon, I'm not going to say takes Petty GMS Legacy MC.
I know. We're going to have to get used to that.
It doesn't take them to that Trackhouse level,
Mm-hmm.
but they're right there below it.
Okay. All right. We'll have to see. I mean, there's certainly a level that they want to get to, and they want to be that next Trackhouse. Again, I think the addition of Jimmy Johnson, and Noah Gragson, we talked about him being a good go-getter. He's got to also learn patience and get that learning curve, and I think Jimmy Johnson can work with Noah Gragson and make that learning curve a little bit easier for Noah Gragson. Let's take this break. He mentioned Ty Dillon and Spire Motorsports. We'll talk about them when we come back on CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. On the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back into the show. Steve West along with Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, back in our Alabama studios and doing a very, very nice job, and we appreciate him. All right, so you mentioned it. Ty Dillon is back. He went from the number 42 car to the number 77. Spire Motorsports has decided now that they've had, I guess, pretty much enough of rotating drivers through that first car that they had, and noted that Corey LaJoie seemed to have a modicum of success, certainly a success for Spire Motorsports when he was the only driver in the number 7 car, and that consistency seemed to pay dividends, so they're going to try it. With Ty Dillon, we'll see. They did get some extra sponsorship. We talked about Ferris Mowers signing on to be a sponsorship with Hallmark Friesen Racing in the Truck Series this year, but they decided to go for more. They've signed on with Spire Motorsports. They're going to sponsor Ty Dillon in the 77 Camaro this year in Cup competition. They're going to be on the hood for the Daytona 500 and some other races. We haven't got a full rundown of which ones. Certainly the money's nice, and I know Spire Motorsports can't turn that down. But again, Ty Dillon just seems to keep getting rides, and I have to ask the question, what do they see that I'm missing? Because I'm not getting it.
I don't know, man. It's hard to say because there's what he brings to Spire that you're going to say. I don't know. I just don't know.
I'll tell you what, we'll leave it right there. We're baffled. We don't know how Ty Dillon keeps getting rides, but he does. Let's turn our attention to Roush Fenway Keselowski, or RFK Racing, and driver and co-owner Brad Keselowski. They've signed another new sponsor, Solomon Plumbing, based in Michigan. I say new. It's they returning from last year where they had him for 4 races. They signed on last year for the Bristol Dirt Race, Atlanta, and Fall, Kansas. This year they have upped their commitment to those 4. Richmond in April. Then Solomon might be based in Michigan, but they've decided not to do Michigan this year. They also have an office in North Carolina. They're not doing Charlotte. But they are going to be on the hood after Richmond at Nashville, at Darlington, and in our own backyard next fall at Talladega. Maybe they're thinking of expanding out more.
Who knows?
Knock yourself out. Trackhouse Racing has signed themselves a new old sponsor. Worldwide Express going to be on the hood of either the 1 or the 99 for a total of 21 races this year. They're based out of Dallas, Texas. WWEX, as they're also known, has sub-brands called Global Trans and Unishippers. You can expect all 3 names on the cars throughout the course of the season. Ross Chastain's number 1 car going to get the majority, 19 of those 21 races. Daniel Suarez gets the other 2. This is year number 2 for that partnership, and then correct me if I'm wrong, when Chastain won at COTA, Worldwide Express was on that car.
No, when he won at COTA, it was iFly and Onyx Homes.
Oh, okay.
The red-black car.
I sit corrected. I'm not standing. This is the 2nd year, by the way, for that partnership. They worked together for 11 races last year, so it's up now to 21. Then there is the Alabama-based company that has signed on to sponsor Front Row Motorsports this coming season in 4 events. The company is Quincy Compressor. You may or may not have heard of them. They're based in South Alabama in Bay Minette. They've signed on for 3 races for Todd Gilliland, easy for me to say, in the number 38 Mustang, 1 race for Michael McDowell's number 34. Strangely enough, not one of those 4 races is Talladega.
Wow.
Go figure. Either way. So we're going to be at Daytona here in a couple of hours. When the Cup Series comes to Daytona in a couple of weeks, there's going to be 1 less driver for gunning for one of those 4 reserved slots for those unchartered cars. We've talked about this. You got 36 chartered cars, right? They're guaranteed entry regardless of how badly they might screw up in the dual race or in qualifying. Therefore, you only have 4 slots that are left open in a 40-car field, right? Well, we know that Jimmy Johnson's going to be trying for it. For example, we thought Ilio Castroneves was going to be able to get in on this as well, but Ilio Castroneves said, I really can't find the car. Seems strange. Ilio Castroneves holding out hope and thought, first of all, and of course we thought too, the Trackhouse Racing Project 91 would be that ultimate fit. Trackhouse instead decided that they were going to concentrate on the biggest race of the year on their 2 full-time cars, the 1 and the 99. So Project 91, that's staying back at home in their North Carolina shop. So with that being said, Castroneves then started talking to the money team owned by boxer Floyd Mayweather. The two sides couldn't come together on the details of a deal, so Castroneves lost the ride Grala's in. Well, here's the thing. He's still got that deal with SRX CEO Don Hawk to try and get him a Cup Series ride. But the four-time Indy 500 champion said this, quote, "Unfortunately, for me, lack of experience, no testing, a lot of things. I believe it's going to be a little tough throwing myself in on such short notice. To go to a place where you've got to race yourself in, as of right now, it's not going to happen. We need to have an opportunity, and we've got to give me a little bit more experience." And I agree. You want to make sure that it's right. I mean, you don't want to force the issue. If I'm Castroneves, I'm staying on the phone with Trackhouse Racing. That's your best ride, obviously.
Oh, no doubt.
Sorry, folks. I don't care who all else is coming in, Team Heseberg or Floyd Mayweather's the money team or whoever it is. Your best ride is that Project 91 entry. We've seen what they can do with the 1 and the 99. We saw last year what the Project 91 car was capable of doing. I mean, they brought Kimi Räikkönen over, who had, for all intents and purposes, zero experience in anything resembling a full-fendered car for many, many years. And because of that, and for a while until things kind of went sideways for him, in a situation that really wasn't his fault, he had that car up inside the top 20.
Oh, yeah. He did. But I'm with you. The money thing's not an option for me if I'm Helio.
Yeah.
I'm Project 91 all day.
Yeah. I'm effectively camping out on the doorstep, and anytime they'll let me in the doors to sit there and talk with them about what opportunities we're going to have coming up in the future at Project 91, I want to be first in line. As Helio Castroneves, I want to be first in line for that opportunity when they're ready to put the Project 91 car out on the track. Meanwhile, Trackhouse has themselves a new primary sponsor in Kubota Tractors. The two sides came together on a deal that was announced just yesterday, going to have their signature orange colors on the 1 and the 99 for 6 total races this coming year. Ross Chastain, again, getting the bulk of those. 5 of them. Daniel Suarez will get the 6. We don't know which ones those are going to be. That'll be detailed later. And by the way, expect Kubota Tractors to be mowing the yard and the official grounds of Trackhouse Racing because they're the official tractor of Trackhouse Racing now. For others, we got some better news as well. Chase Briscoe, speaking of a number 14, the number 14 is Stewart-Haas Racing. Chase Briscoe is going to be there for a pretty good bit longer. He just signed an extension of his contract with the team on Thursday. Terms weren't revealed, but the team's statement on the signing said Chase will be, quote, in the 14 Mustang for many more seasons.
Good.
Read into that what you will, but yeah, I think it's absolutely the right move. This is a kid who seems to be building more and more confidence over the course of time. And think about this. We know Kevin Harvick is done after this year. He said it. I'm done full-time. Cup Series driving at the end of 2023. Eric Almirola is effectively year to year.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are to believe everything, it probably Eric Almirola is going to be out after this year because it took a lot of convincing to bring him back for this year. He was expected to be done after 2022. Well, if Almirola leaves and Harvick is gone, as we know, guess who the senior member of the team is?
Chase Briscoe.
It's Chase Briscoe. Briscoe says he's in his dream seat. We'll get back to that. Tony Stewart, who owns co-owns the car and drove that number from 2009 to his own retirement in 2016, said this, quote, Chase has made the most of every opportunity, and the proof is in the results. Keeping him at SHR was a priority. We're proud to have him in our race cars for many more years to come. Briscoe said, again, that the 14 car was his dream seat. He said, quote, I remember getting signed by Ford in 2017. I told people then, if I could pick one place to be, it would be Stewart-Haas Racing. If I could drive one car, it would be the 14 car. That would be the ultimate dream. Now, here I am. And he's making the most of it. His rookie year, he showed flashes, but we didn't see that out of him. What we saw last year was him feeling like he had mastered the car well enough to the point where he could let it fly. And yeah, he made some mistakes think, Bristol dirt race last year when he sailed it off into turn, well, I guess it was 3, and took himself out and the leader out at the same time. But there's also, how best to put it, there's also that desire for him to win, and him having taken ownership enough of that 14 car to say, you know what, I'm going to give it that shot. I don't think he would have tried to have made that move in his rookie year of 2021. In 2022, he does. He goes, I'm going for the win. I feel like this is more my car now than it was Clint Boyer's or Tony's car. This is my car now.
Yeah. I mean, he's making that 14 car into his own, like you said.
Right.
All right. And when Kevin does hang it up at the end of the year, even when Eric Almirola does, whether it's this year or even next year,
right?
Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
That automatically catapults Chase to that senior role, like you said. And if Tony signed him for many more years to come, he sees something in Chase that probably some don't see yet.
Yeah. For me, and I'm just going to put this very, very bluntly, because I've met Cole Custer, really, really good guy, easy guy to talk to, very willing to be interviewed, and was very patient with me in going back and forth when we had that meet and greet a couple of years ago. But while I haven't had the chance to meet Chase Briscoe, what I hear from him, what I see from him, his demeanor, his personal demeanor when he's at the track, when I see him, when he's in interviews, be it with Fox or NBC or whoever it's going to be with, when he, in the words that I read, I guess is another way to put it, I see a level of confidence out of Chase Briscoe that is missing from Cole Custer.
Right.
Cole Custer needs to get that back. He had it when he was in the Xfinity Series, but he just could not get, it seemed that he could not get comfortable in the Cup Series car. He needs to regain that confidence, and he needs to understand that he needs to figure out what Chase Briscoe has that he's missing, and he needs to find that.
Right. He does. And like you just touched on Cole Custer, with him taking that one step back this year, he's, I guess you could say, maybe going to find himself.
This is his chance.
This may be one of those scenarios that it may be another Justin Allgaier type situation developing.
Could be.
Personally, I think it is.
Okay.
Because Ford's got quite a few people left in the pipeline.
Oh, yeah.
They've outperformed Cole Custer statistically a lot. Zane Smith in particular, I think he's the prime candidate, in my opinion, to take Harvick's spot. Time will tell, though.
Yep.
It's just an opinion.
We'll find out. Then there's former Cup Series driver. When was the last time we heard from Casey Mears?
Wow.
Casey, though, is actually only a few races away from reaching a milestone, 500 Cup Series starts in his career. He would like to attain that mark, and he understands it would be in a part-time role. The thing about it is, he's pretty good friends with a guy by the name of, what's that guy's name? Oh, Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, that co-owner.
Yeah, of the former Petty GMS racing team, now Legacy Motor Club. Mears, sitting at 489 starts, got to talking to the website Kicking the Tires recently, said, quote, I was looking at stats a little while ago, and I never realized where I was as far as starts went. I'm 11 away from 500. I'd love to figure out how to put an 11-race schedule together with somebody just to cap it off. I wonder who might have a part-time car that they could run. Oh, wait a minute. What was that friendship we were just talking about?
Yeah, Johnson.
Because they're not going to run that 84 car full-time with Johnson. Maybe they could trot it out for a few more races with Casey Mears.
Who knows?
If they get sponsorship, they might just pull it together. Before we go to break, Matt, you saw some video earlier this week. Cup cars hit the track with quote-unquote mufflers attached, something NASCAR says they're playing with it using some races this coming season. What did you think? Did anything stick out about it to you?
the one thing that stuck out the biggest is where now the exhaust sides come out. I'm going to say what would be the equivalent of where the driver's feet are.
Mm-hmm.
The new exhaust exit area, we'll call that, is back in its original position when the new next-gen cars came out. Longer tubes make for wider cars.
Sure.
Shorter tubes make for louder cars.
Sure.
Common sense. But we've got the people in Los Angeles and apparently Chicago already complaining about noise, and they've not even ran in Chicago yet.
Hmm. And I've only had 1 year of experience with them running at the LA Coliseum.
True. But, yeah. I'm not so sure about this because you're going to have right back to the heat issue you initially was talking about to start with.
Yeah.
Because Gen 6, Gen 5, COT, Gen 4, all those generations before this new one, the exhaust came out right side. They didn't come out the left.
They do now.
They do now. Therefore, increasing the heat, therefore increasing the sound, because it comes out of two sides, not just one.
Right. And there's also this. You mentioned that the shorter tubes came out right around the driver's feet. Longer tubes basically has it putting the exhaust out right under their butt.
Bingo.
And added heat.
Yeah, I saw on social media yesterday in the airport a photo that was put out, I think it was from Joe Gibbs Racing, of the actual setup from the muffler coming from the engine all the way back and out the exit area.
Mm-hmm.
It appears they may have a catalytic converter attached to this because there's a short section and a long section.
Okay.
You can clearly see what the muffler is.
So it's not really a
Shorter
muffler,
section's
it's a
in
cap.
front.
I guess we'll find out. IndyCar. When we come back from this next break, Doug Bowles got to talking on Sirius XM satellite radio. We caught a couple of these interviews as we were driving over to the airport yesterday. They were talking to track presidents all over, and Doug Bowles from Indianapolis Motor Speedway was one of them. Are we stuck running the road course? Maybe, maybe not. Details next, right here on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, we are. One final segment. Let's see how much we can get into here. Doug Bowles, the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, got to talking yesterday on Sirius XM Radio. Said that despite the NASCAR and IndyCar weekend, that they are finally now working together, whereas for many, many years they didn't have anything to do with each other. Running on the road course and running back-to-back between IndyCar and the Xfinity Series, Bowles says he envisions going back to actually running the Brickyard, the oval, or more directly the rectangle sometime in the future. Bowles said, quote, I think we've said, maybe not formally, but we've never said that we're not going to go back to the oval when we switch to the road course. We wanted to see how it worked, and that's why we started with Xfinity and then rolled it into Cup. We wanted to give it some time, see how it worked, instead of just going for 1 year. Winning on the oval is special. We do want to get back to the oval at some point in time. The question is when? And do we go back to the oval permanently? Do we want some sort of rotation where some years it's the oval, some years it's the road course? You do it every 10 years. We haven't decided exactly how that looks, but I do think that sooner rather than later, then we'll figure it out, and we will see what the long term looks like. And in terms of our cadence with the road course and the oval, we'll see how the mix is. You and I got to talking about this. Right. They're not going to run 2 IndyCar races on the oval / rectangle because the Indy 500 is separated out.
Sure.
How hard do you think it would be to do a Saturday doubleheader, IndyCar, Xfinity on the road course, and then transform the track and let the Cup Series run the oval?
If I'm not mistaken, they did it a few years ago with Xfinity and Cup.
So why can't we do it again?
I don't know.
That would do 2 things. Number one, it would allow the Cup Series to go back onto the oval. Number 2, it would keep your IndyCar NASCAR weekend.
Sure. It would. I mean, because there's not any. I don't think there's very many. Let me back and say that.
Mm-hmm.
Very many external barriers they put up. I think it's only in the first turn of the road course where they put them up.
And then coming off the road course back onto what would be turn 2?
They actually come out in the middle of the short chute.
Yeah, that's true. Between 1 and 2.
So really the only thing they got there is a line painted there. I don't think it would be as bad as you think it's going to be to convert it over quick.
Hey, Doug, we're idea people. That's what we do. We need to stop giving this stuff out for free.
Yeah.
John, work on that. We are set to begin the next season next weekend with the second year of the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum. We now know, of course, Fox is going to go through one more year at least of rotating guest commentators in the booth alongside Mike Joy and Clint Boyer, presumably holding that spot for Kevin Harvick next year. As he did last year for the Clash and the Daytona 500, they're going to go with 3-time Cup champion and Boyer's old boss, Smoke. Tony Stewart did 4 total races in 2022 with Fox Sports in NASCAR alongside Joy and Boyer. He did the Clash, the Daytona 500, COTA, and Sonoma. How many he's going to get to help him with this year is unknown right now, but Stewart seems ready to go. He said, quote, I was honored to call both last year, talking about the Clash and the Daytona 500, and I really enjoyed seeing the action from a different perspective and role, not to mention the sheer entertainment of sharing his own knowledge and then having fun with, let's face it, he and Clint Boyer get along. online
We're back.
and get everything fixed up again.
We're
We're back. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Technical glitches. We got it figured out. Thank you very much for all your work. So, Tony Stewart going to be back in there. And, again, don't really know how many races or which ones, if there are any others past the Busch Light Clash and the Daytona 500. But, hey, knock it out, Tony. Go get it. We talked about Ty Dillon and Ferris Mowers in the Cup Series. They're also going to join with the Richard Childress Racing Division to sponsor Ty Dillon in the Xfinity Series and the number 3 Camaro for several races, which will include, and this will probably be a good-looking car, the Darlington Throwback Weekend. The rest of the races have not been revealed at this time as Dillon is trying to cement his seat at Spire Motorsports. But can he learn something? I mean, I understand these two cars are vastly different, but what can he learn something from Xfinity that he could take to Cup?
No.
Oh. Well.
Simply put, no. I think this is more running the 3 car for the few races he's going to run them.
Okay.
I think it's more of a confidence rebooster.
Okay. We'll see if it works.
Sure.
Cowlick Racing and their driver Daniel Hemrick going to be sponsored by Circle, CIRKUL, this coming season in 14 races. Marks the second year for Cowlick and Circle to partner up, noting that in 2022 they were a primary sponsor for 9 races in Xfinity competition. And 1 race with Hemrick in Cup. This season they will open up on the hood at Daytona. Since parting ways with Joe Graff Jr. a couple of weeks ago, SS Greenlight Racing has been looking to see who might be their best fit. They're going back to the future for it. They've plucked Greg Galding off the free agent front to return to the team full-time. This is a move that reunites the team and the driver who ran full-time in the 2019 season together. He got a second-place finish at Talladega, got 4 total top 10 results on the year, and then lost that ride. This time, though, he's going to pilot the team's 08 Chevrolet Camaro. We noted last week that Blaine Perkins was going to be in the 07, so they're going to run 2 full-time cars.
I don't know what it will do for them. I mean, because with the 07 car specifically,
Okay.
when that car was a non-SHR prepared car,
Right.
where were they? Where were they?
We'll get back to that. Yeah, we'll get back to that. First things first, let's talk Sam Hunt Racing. They filled out their 2023 season, or they're continuing to fill it out. They've announced that they've brought on 21-year-old Texas native Parker Chase to drive the number 24 Toyota in a set number of races. They didn't detail the exact number. Chase drove for Hunt in 2022 at 2 races, Coda and Portland, after being in what is now the Craftsman Truck Series in 2021, running a number of road course races in a part-time role there. He's also got 9 starts in the ARCA Menard Series last year, where he got 2 top 5s and 6 top 10s. Second place was his best result last year's season opener at Daytona. Parker Chase coming in, getting something of a shot, a little bit more of a shot, I guess I should say. It's still that learning curve for him. They don't seem fully committed to him. Nobody does, I guess I should say it that way.
Yeah, this one kind of puzzled me a little bit because Parker Chase's background is road racing.
Mm-hmm.
The primary driver for the 24 this year, Connor Mozak, road racing.
Kind of doubling up on that.
Kind of doubling down, so you got 2 good road course racers and one's coming off the bench as a 6th man, I guess you could say. I mean, he performed admirably at the super speedways. So, I don't know. I don't know where his other starts would come in at.
All right. Well, we just talked about it since SS Greenlight Racing moved on from Joe Graff Jr. because Graff did not have a really great year last year. He found himself a new ride, though. He's latched on with RSS Racing for the 2023 season. Graff finished a pedestrian 27th in the final 2022 standings, but claimed a top 10 at Talladega last spring. He has signed on for at least 28 races for RSS Racing in the second car, not the 39. That's going to be Ryan Siegs, probably the 93. This will include the season opener at Daytona. He does have Ford Performance. He's got Jacob Companies, his own, be careful when you say this, bucked up energy drink, G-Coin, and several other sponsors coming along with him. RSS Racing, just like Greenlight Racing did last year, has technical support from Stewart Haas Racing. And he does have a fairly good crew chief calling the shots for him. Graff's going to get Steve Addington, former Cup crew chief.
You have no excuse this year, Joe.
If you don't get it now, you ain't gonna.
You ain't gonna.
2023 Craftsman Truck Series Rookie of the Year contender Rajah Caruth going to get some time in Xfinity competition this year as well. He has re-signed with Alpha Prime Racing, hoping to build upon the 7 starts he got in last year, all with Alpha Prime Racing. He had 2 DNFs in his first 4 starts, but he found a bit of a groove over those last 3. All last 3 races were top 20 finishes, with races and sponsors set to be announced at a later date, the team said. So we're getting him more and more comfortable in that role. Chase Elliott, your 2020 Cup Series champion, no stranger to Truck Series racing. He's going to make his presence felt again this year. It starts at Daytona. He's going to run a McAnally-Hilgeman entry, number 35 specifically, in the season opener. Sponsorship coming from Gates Hydraulics and Napa, one of his Cup sponsors, and as it turns out, one of McAnally-Hilgeman's longtime sponsors as well. This will be Elliott's 18th Truck Series career start, and I bet you it's not the only one he does this year.
Probably not.
When the series heads out to Las Vegas, Elliott set to turn the wheel over to Jake Garcia. Garcia is another Georgia native who's going to celebrate his 18th birthday right about that same time. Mark Hillman will be the crew chief. This will be his 3rd year at McAnally-Hilgeman Racing, calling the shots. Last year it was on the number 91 truck for Colby Howard. Charles Deneke is going to be the crew chief for the 19 Napa-sponsored truck of Christian Eckes, noting that Chad Norris now joins the team as their GM, coming over from GMS Racing to oversee the team's changes from last year to this. It looks like they're pulling something together over there. The question is, how long is it going to take for that all to gel?
I don't think it'll take long.
Okay.
I don't think it'll take long at all.
With those people that they've got on board, they seem to know what they're talking about at least.
Yep.
Nice Motorsports bringing back, got to be one of the best names in racing right now going. Lawless Allen, they're bringing him back for year number 2. He will once again compete in the number 45 Chevrolet Silverado. He hopes to build upon a pretty decent debut of 2022. He was full-time, got a best finish of 11th at Circuit of the Americas, finished the season with 8 top 20 results. He was 22nd in the final standings. He's got room to grow, there's no doubt about it. And then some sad news, so we're hoping good things for the Rayón Brothers racing team when their shop caught on fire Thursday. According to a statement from the team, quote, earlier this afternoon, there was a fire at the RBR shop. An investigation into the cause is ongoing. We're in the process of determining the extent of damages. More importantly, a few of our team members sustained damages during the fire, being transported for medical treatment. Please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. On Wednesday, and this came right on the heels of them announcing that they had signed Mason Massey to drive for them full-time this coming year, and Ford F-150 trucks, a year after putting trucks out for 21 different drivers and a total of 42 starts over 23 races. It also assisted Team Heseberg as they ran their first Cup races. It seemed like maybe they were going to start getting things together, but then they got a fire that sets them back, and I hate that for them. And Tricon Garage driver Taylor Gray, he's still only 17 years old, and as such cannot run in select races, read Daytona, until he turns 18. Well, he's going to reach that milestone on March the 25th, and that means he'll have to miss the first 3 races of the year. Tricon asked NASCAR for a playoff waiver, and NASCAR granted it. So should Gray qualify for the playoffs by either being in the top 20 in points and attaining a win, or getting into the top 10 on points alone, despite missing the first 3 races of the year, he gets to participate in the playoffs. As for who will drive the 17 truck at Daytona, Las Vegas, Atlanta, we don't know yet. Stay tuned. That's about all the time we got for this week. We'll get to NHRA stuff that we mixed next week. In fact, I promised the NHRA we'll lead off with that. Y'all have a fantastic time. We're planning on enjoying ourselves at the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. We got to go about an hour that direction, as it turns out, northeast of where we're located right now. We're looking forward to it. We'll have a full report on it next week as well. Our big thanks to producer John up there at the home track, our home facility. We appreciate him and all that he has done, and we'll, again, be back in studio next week. Until then, y'all have a fantastic week. Enjoy the racing, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.